right. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Mental Health Mondays. I am, of course, Aaron, or also known as Mind Runner on the socials, of course. And my guest at this time is a legend in the pro wrestling business. She has sometimes been called the French Canadian asshole. May or may not have heard that moniker. She has had brutal matches all over the United States, Canada, and other countries, including a slobber knocker against Holiday. She is one of the most renowned authorities of lifting other women in the women's division. She's wrestled everywhere, including North Carolina. I'm talking about none other than LuFisto.
Ew, introduction.
I just hope Kenny Omega doesn't sue me someday.
It's like you went to very tragic to some like you were at the gathering or something.
Yeah. I don't have my Juggalo paint on yet, but that's awesome. LuFisto, thank you so much for being here with me. I've been really excited about this and having you on. Welcome to Mental Health Mondays.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited. So much to talk about. And again, running joke. I know listeners, my non-wrestling fans, I promise, although wrestling will come up, I promise this is not a wrestling podcast. This is mental health, but there are so many parallels.
I'm a person who just wrestles.
Yes, occupation wrestler, but you're the human being. Exactly. And that truly is the focus. But I'm so excited to have you here. And I'm so excited that we both were able to get some physical fuel in us before jumping on here. Because I think that's self-care is important. And that includes making sure we eat and eat right. How important is it to not only make sure that you're taking care of your body, but also getting the right things in?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's funny because it's not funny because it's a pain in the, can I say ass?
At this point, yes. Yeah, we won't get demonetized.
Okay. So I've been struggling being a 43-year-old woman. I'm struggling with hormones right now. So it's just a mess of what I should eat, how I should train, so I'm seeing my trainer next week. So yeah, everything's about food. What should I eat? Because I'm gaining weight, losing weight. Like I can't really control it. And it's very frustrating. Mm-hmm. And just before coming on the podcast, I did my training, cardio. I did also clean up all my house because this is something that for my mental health is very important. I need my house to be clean. Yes. I need to be in a good environment where I look around and I like what I see. And I'm also allergic to dust. So, breathing is really important. Yes. So I did that. And then I saw the 2:00 coming and I was like, I didn't eat. I should really. So thank you for working with my crazy schedule that I need to do this. I started my meal prep also because I do all my meals in advance for the week when I go to work. But work besides wrestling because I also do other things. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it's having a routine, I think helps with anything that, works with the brain because you know where you're going, you plan ahead. I like surprises and I don't at the same time. So mm-hmm. I like to I'm very, very organized and I need this in my life so everything goes well.
I love that. It's in fact, I think I'm very much the same way. I like to be prepared for surprises. It's like, it's not necessarily like I don't like surprises. Sometimes I do. I like to go with the flow and whoa, this is happening, but be prepared for them.
Yeah.
And meal prep is something that, teachers have to do too. Like it's so much better because when I'm getting up in the morning, because I usually, when I was in the classroom, I teach virtually now, but when I was in the classroom, I would have to get up at dark 30 in the morning and be there just to set up the day. Mm-hmm. And I would have to, and just having that meal prep to take with me is so important. And that taking, and not just that, but how important is taking time to take care of you, have those downtimes, have that. How important is that as well?
Oh, it's like, yeah, like it is important because if you keep going and you want to do things and you can't stop, that's where you get really tired, and then
Mhm.
you get it's like your ideas can't you can't focus. Like not only like I do suffer from depression, like
Mhm.
the constant kind of one that I always have to check. But I'm also I have heavy ADHD. So I really need to have that time where I'm like, okay, stop, relax, do nothing. I'll just play. One trick that I found, I just play games on my phone.
Mhm.
Those tiles games or things where the sorting games are the ones that really help me kind of disconnect with everything.
Yeah.
Just like listening to as much as I'm a heavy metal person, I love listening to jazz, like quiet jazz, and my
Mhm.
cats love it too. So they all gather around me and they just
Cool.
sleep. They sit, and I'm just on my phone sipping my coffee, and I'm just doing those sorting games, and that helps me clear everything. While I'm doing that, I'm thinking about where I should put this item so I don't like go overboard or whatever, and I don't get like because it's the game I play is terrible for that because when you miss it says you fail. I'm like, oh,
No.
you're not good, but
Talk about negative reinforcement. It's
but
like,
it
oh,
helps.
really?
Like, yeah, I disconnect from everything just playing those little games, and it's just great. Or either that or I love RuPaul's Drag Race, so and it
There you
makes me
go.
laugh. It's the creativity of all the makeup and the gear and everything. So that's one thing. Like I'll usually keep the episodes for the weekend in the morning. So I'll just
Uh-huh.
make myself a coffee, sit down with my cats, and I just watch that and I laugh, and it starts my day like really good.
Work. Excellent. Yeah. And a lot of for myself and Full Tilt Deb, my goddess wife, pro wrestling has become our like mental break from all the stress that we have. We love just watching, like, we'll put like Mission Pro, we'll have
Mhm.
have a weekend pay-per-view on Title Match Network, or AEW, WWE. We'll watch, and we can just not think about everything going on. We have a friend of mine that's a special education teacher, and he's going through a lot right now. But he comes over every Wednesday night for
It's a
Dynamite,
tough
and
job.
it's really, especially right now. Kind of, there's some there's some different philosophies in special education,
Mhm.
and kind of touching on your ADHD. And I had Mikey Ruckus on a while back, and he talked about his ADHD, and I've had a few other guests on, like Kitty Fantastic, a few others that I've learned a lot about ADHD. That some misconceptions that it's not just people going squirrel like that. That there's, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot to it. And in general, also with like autism and a lot of other things, as we discover with mental health, do you think that we're starting to head in the right direction with these understandings, or are there still a lot of misconceptions out there about ADHD and depression and those kind of things?
It's so much better because now you hear especially when in several working place you do have those mental health days, or if
Hmm.
you don't feel good, it's not like, oh, give yourself a kick in the ass and get over it.
That's
We
my
don't
dad
hear
talking.
those kind of remarks anymore. It's more like, hey, take some time for you, take a day off, just
Hmm.
relax. And for ADHD, I'm still learning about it because apparently I had it for years, but it was diagnosed last year. I didn't
Wow.
know I had it. But somebody who doesn't understand ADHD, it's like, like you said, like, oh, bird. But it's more like, and let's say you're at school and you're listening to the teacher, and it hits us a lot, especially if it's a subject that doesn't really cater to us, or it
Hmm.
was something that you're not super interested in. Let's say I like math, but not that much. And then exactly, there's a bird coming at the window.
Yeah.
I'm trying to listen, but then I'm going to like, oh, what's that bird? Where it came from? I like the colors. And then your brain starts to ask a question, and you're like focused on this. It's just not like, oh, bird, and then you lose everything. It's just like your focus switches to something else, and
Yeah.
now you're like more you're like, it's really hard to explain, but it's like, yeah, all those questions where now your interest is there instead of where it should be during the
It's
class.
like you
So
opened a new. It's like you opened a new tab on your browser. You still have the other
exactly, it's like, oh,
tabs open.
that's more interesting. That like, so right now your brain is just there. So one trick that I had when I was a kid, and it's because of ADHD, and I didn't know I had it back then because yeah, I'm in my 40s now. So at school, it's not, I remember being, people talked a lot about hyperactive kids and Ritalin and
Yeah.
all this stuff, but I was not hyperactive. It's just I would get like distracted by other things that were more interesting than.
Yes.
So that's why most of the time I was at school and I would just like draw in my agenda. And while I was drawing and focus on that, I would be listening to my teacher. And that's the way I found I had like very good grades, but I needed to do this. Otherwise, anything else, like, especially if it was like something I was not interested in, then if I was not doing that, the teacher would completely lose me.
I wonder if there's a parallel too, and perhaps there is, where, because what you do to relax, where you're playing your games, but you're also thinking, because I like Minecraft or other games where I'm doing something, but I'm also like listening to a podcast or listening to some music, and I'm thinking about things in my life. I need to do this. I really need to handle this parent teacher. I'm thinking all this stuff. I wonder, is that kind of the same kind of thing where the doodling distracts that part of your brain, but it also helps you engage? Is that kind of what you?
Definitely. And it's like when I'm at work, I always listen to talk radio, like any, like I listen mostly to the major station here in Quebec, but I'm going to listen also to podcasts and stuff because I need that constant sound, voice, something. Because if it's complete silence and I'm just focused on my work and I'm like, no, I'm gonna, or like, oh, this is long, or I'll look at my watch, but if I have that person talking to me the whole day, and then like work, I get done fast, and I'm like freaking like I'm a machine. But yeah, I need that second something to keep me focused.
Absolutely. I highly recommend listening to podcasts, especially that one called Mental Health Monday, soon to be on Spotify. A very charming host and very insightful guest, too. He gets the best guests. His guests are so awesome and such rock stars. But yeah, I think there's a lot to that. I had a student with ADHD, and she was the first to really show me how different ADHD looks compared to the stereotype. She never was like squirrel bouncing around.
Yeah.
But what was so weird, what was grabbing, she would own it too. What was really cool is because she was twice exceptional, very gifted, but also very ADHD. She would participate in the IEP meetings, the meetings for her special needs, and she would help run the meeting because she was so self-aware of her diagnosis. She owned it. And yet, but one of the things we would have to do is whenever we would, like, she would finish a task and then she would pick up one of her favorite books and she would read, and she would lose herself in that book, like to the point where we're going to lunch. I'd have to have a student go over and tap her on the shoulder. I mean, we're turning the lights out and she's still sitting there like this, like not even really like questioning why it just got darker and it's harder to read her book. She's still reading. But she was such a sweetheart. And that was one of the first time I realized that hyper focus can really can be weaponized. I mean, I would say weaponized, maybe that's not the right word, but it can be harnessed for some great things. But it also could keep you from getting to lunch, dude, and the rest of the class is leaving.
For me doing my things like, I should really eat.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's great. I do feel like we're really coming around. It's funny you said something earlier. like my dad's generation was definitely suck it up, walk it off. Why you crying?
Yeah.
And in the I'm sure in the wrestling industry, especially when you were starting out, mental health days meant no work day, right?
Yeah, and I mean, back then it was even more. It was like mental abuse. We have to see if you're tough. We
Yeah.
have to see if you can hang with us, if you belong into this business. I mean, it's night and day compared to what it used to be. When I started, we would get the like beat up, and it's like, you're not good, and that's not for you, and just like mental abuse nonstop. It didn't come from a bad place. It was more like it's the way it was from generation to generation.
Like hazing, kind of like hazing.
Yeah, it's like more of a army style with like, you don't belong here, you're not good enough. Oh yeah, show me you can. It was more of a yeah, kick yourself in the ass and go forward and push your limits. And as of now, it's more about teaching. Like they will show you how to wrestle, the wrestling holds, the bumps and everything. And back then they just at first wanted to see how tough you were. And if you could prove them that you could hang and that you belonged in there, then they would show you. You needed to bump on the floor before they could allow you to step in their ring. And and especially being a woman who was fighting the guys because there was no other women. The number of, I always say, like, my nose got broken so many times, and I got stretched and I got punched so hard because women didn't belong in the ring with men, and they wanted me to know, and they wanted me to quit. And it's just like, no, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to show you that I can't do this. But looking back, my God, it was so much abuse and so much crying when I was going back home. And I mean, there's no way it has been any good for my mental health. But I guess my desire to prove people wrong and that I wanted to be taken seriously as a wrestler. And I remember other wrestlers telling me, you take this too seriously. Well, if I don't, you won't.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you won't. You think I'm a joke. You think I'm an attraction. You think I should be a lady that runs around the ring and looks sexy in high heels. That's not what I want to do. I want to be a wrestler. And so I had to go through all this for years. There was the mental abuse. There's also sexual abuse. Like I would get grabbed and I would like get my towel pulled. There's a guy who tried to get in my shower. There's like endless examples. And I was not comfortable with my body. Like I said, I'm someone who deals a lot with losing and gaining weight, losing it again. So that always has been a struggle. And at home, my stepfather kept telling me I was fat, I was ugly, I wouldn't do anything wrong. And then you find wrestling as a safe haven where like, I'm going to get all my frustrations out and I'm going to go out there. And you relive the same thing throughout the guys who believe you should not be there. And they tell you, like my second match, there's one wrestler who threw water on me. It's like, you're going to quit in a year. You're a piece of shit. You think you're better than us, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, my God, no. But just the fact that I wanted to be in the ring with them and I wanted to push, like, it's like I was not allowed. And they were letting me know. So I'm saying that. And I was like, my God, that was so terrible. Thank God today it's not like that anymore. And if it's like that, it gets called out now. Yeah. And when a guy didn't want to wrestle me back then, it's like, he doesn't want to lose to a girl. You got to understand, like, it's shameful for us. And now if a guy says, I don't want to wrestle or lose to this girl, he's going to get called out on social media. He's going to get unbooked. He's going to get canceled. Back then, it was like I was getting canceled.
You were getting canceled,
for wanting to push the limits and fighting for women's rights. So it really like a complete like 180 switch from what it used to be. And thank God.
And I bet you probably wish you had some poutine to go with all the potatoes you got hitting you in the face, right?
Oh my God.
You know?
Yeah. Well, you can't eat too much poutine. As good as it is in the mouth, it's not really good for the ass.
Well, you know what's interesting too, and I want to ask you from a professional wrestling standpoint is it seems like though in the ring when you're taking bumps, it's good to have more mass than
Yes.
yeah. So there's that balance between you want to have a good presentation, you want to be healthy, but you also need to have some meat on your bones. So if you're too skinny, you're gonna really do some damage when you take those bumps.
And here's the thing, when it comes to women's wrestling, a lot of it has to do with looks. But the thing is, you need some muscle, you need some mass, you need some protection because if you're very skinny and you fall on that ring, I mean, it's plywood, it's beams of steel, and there's that much cushion that a cushion that's really hard because it's too soft. You can't run properly on it, and you can
Yeah.
twist your knees. So, I mean, it's gonna get to your bones a lot faster than someone who has good muscle build and
Hmm.
um, but unfortunately for the women, they wanted models. Like
Yeah.
I'm from the era I started when it was the Attitude Era, with the
Frog
models
panties.
turn into wrestling, and most of them were very skinny. Some of them had more of a fitness kind of look,
Hmm.
so they had that protection. But in general, like the amount of time I've been told, like, "Oh, you're too fat, you're too fat," and the thing is, I look at my pictures back then, and I think I was pretty tiny compared to what I am in general. And I'm like, my God, I was being called fat and ugly, and like people like Jacques Rougeau, they told me like you should never show those legs again. Nobody wants to see that because I
That's
always had
Jacques
the very
Rougeau,
big,
though.
strong legs. And you go back home and it messes you up. Like just dealing with him, for me it was like a complete um I left home to get away from all the negativity from my stepfather,
Hmm.
and I ended up working for Rougeau, and it got even worse where I ended up being bulimic because what are you eating? Oh, don't eat that. He would call me and it's like, what did you eat? You should eat chicken and vegetables, and like, so I started feeling guilty every time I was eating something else.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it plays with your mind and messes you up. And it took me years to actually talk about it and even mention his name, but now I don't care.
Hmm.
He's a terrible human being. So, yeah, no, I was all this stuff. And back in those days, like right now, something like that, you just think about the speaking out, all the people who came out with similar stories.
Hmm.
I think back then I was not ready to share all this, but now I'm like, you know what? No,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, there's something there too. Like you don't want like your passion for the industry.
Hmm.
You don't want to continue. Put a black mark on it. You don't want to be the person that's oh, look at this person, and we'll talk about some more of that. I definitely want to get into, but
Hmm.
like those, it's amazing how the times have changed. Paralleling society in general, and like again for my non wrestling fan listeners, it really parallels a lot with society. When women were supposed to be in the kitchen, or women should only take certain kind of jobs, and now presentation is tremendous, but in all encompassing. Like you can have that, like a Layla Hirsch looks like a badass.
Yeah.
She's short and she's like a little stud, and she comes out and she looks legit. Like, and I always joke her theme song sounds like her granddad's a gentleman, but that's a whole other thing. But she that look, and then Abaddon, and you've got
I'm
Holiday.
thinking Rhea Ripley. She
Yes,
looks like a wrestler. She looks like she can kick your ass.
yes. She looked
And
like
she's gorgeous.
she's one that legitimately I could see taking on a Roman Reigns and having a match. Like Not like really like there was a segment where she stared Solo Sikoa.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember that. It stared at him, and people were wanting that match. They were like,
Yeah, I remember seeing online. I didn't like a lot of people were like, I didn't think it's a match I would want, but now I really want it because you've seen the picture. You're like,
yeah,
oh, yeah,
and you're like, she's gonna kick his ass, and it's gonna be believable. So yeah,
she looks like she can.
Yes.
Yes.
And nothing against her, but if Tori Wilson like was gonna wrestle,
it would probably. Oh, he's gonna kill her.
Yeah, exactly. It'd almost be like that's kind of mean. Let's come on now. Let's be cool. But also like the way we've progressed since then now too. I feel like you said, the kind of things that were encouraged back then are being called out now.
Mm-hmm.
I do think we and then maybe I'm too naive or idealistic. I do want to still throw a little compassion because like folks like my dad, they're coming around, but again, they are from a different time. So I want to give them grains of salt, but it doesn't excuse that mentality. It's like, hey, come on, Dad, let's go like this. But like that mentality, like you were talking about before, though, going through all that. On one hand, it was terrible, awful, and it sounds like, not surprisingly, with you and others, it's caused a lot of mental anguish and some trauma.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, you're such a badass that you survived it. You know, is there any pride in, hey, F you, you couldn't stop me?
Oh, definitely. Because a lot of people told me I wouldn't do anything in wrestling, or that you're gonna that guy that told me like you're gonna quit after a year. It's like, well, you quit before I did. I'm still going. I'm 43 years old. I can go in there with people who are younger than my wrestling career. I still can go. I still can have one of the best match on the card. What are you doing? Nothing. And it's like I like take great pride in going out there and still being able to go at it 110%. And one thing you mentioned, it's like back then it was always about protecting the business, and I still want to protect it in a way because I love wrestling. Wrestling itself is fun. Wrestling is challenging. Wrestling, you need to be a creative. I've always said that wrestling, why I fell in love with it so much, it has everything I love. It's a sport. It's drama. It's like being in a movie. It's being a character. It's being creative in your gear, in your promos, which it's everything all in one thing. And I want people to understand that wrestling is not a circus kind of. It still has a bad reputation sometimes, like, oh, wrestling fans are weird, the wrestlers are like losers or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, like being a wrestler is hard because you have to think about all those things. And we're really like stunt women in front, and actors in front of a crowd, where there's no take one, take two. It has to be perfect right on the spot.
Live.
It's a live performance, just like being at the theater, but we do our own stunts. Because we also have to create emotions and make sure people in the room feel what we're feeling, the roller coaster of emotions. Like there's a lot behind just doing one match. Why will a match stand out more than another? Because you lived moments that made you feel something. A move is going to go like, oh, wow. But if you were like legit scared for the person, or you legit like wanted this person to win, you felt something, you're going to remember that match forever.
Exactly.
And that's not everybody can do that. It's a technique. It's a calling. It's so much more than just like going out there and beat the hell out of somebody else.
I hear a lot of criticisms too. Like I actually am getting my 77-year-old mom into wrestling for the first time now. Granted, she always would humor my interest, where she would like she took me to a WWE, actually it was WWF at the time, a match. I actually met Shane Douglas when he was a rocker in training. It was actually kind of cool. I got these looks like a baby. It's really funny. But like like, but she always, it was more like my thing. She really just didn't. But now I'm getting her to watch stuff, and she's just really, and she said, she made a comment. It's like Cirque du Soleil with combat, and I think it's Cirque du Soleil with combat with like a stage Broadway play kind of in there. And like it, like you said, it's one thing to have, and if people talk about spot fests and stuff like that, it's one thing to have an exciting like luchador flippy do or exciting such a cool power slam or something like that. But when, like, for example, like let's say it's like LuFisto versus Masha Slamovich, and like the first time you tried your power slam, she fought it. The second time you tried, she fought. But then finally, the third time you get it, and the crowd is like, yeah, you know, it's getting that feeling, that crowd. There's so much
building that story,
yeah,
and getting the crowd into it. You want them to be, the crowd is part of the match. There's the wrestlers, the referee, and the crowd. It's all like a big. They all work together. If one of them is not cooperating, it's not working. So everybody has to be involved for it to be a good match.
People have even complained, like people complain about like Aubrey Edwards or Bryce Rumsberg, like where the, like, why is the ref acting like this? They're trying, well, but to me, tell me if you disagree, but I think they're, like you said, they're as much a part of the match as everything. And
they're part of the match. The only thing is they can't, there's a limit not to, you can't go overboard, because you want the wrestlers to tell their story.
Yeah.
That the referee is selling the move too because it looks painful. That's fine. It's a natural human emotion. That when someone falls, we'll go like, oh, it's normal. We'll just do it. But if you're like overdoing it, and now and the focus of the crowd is not on the wrestler, it goes only to the ref while they're doing something else, then it's wrong. So there's that line you don't cross. But a good referee will do like the little subtle kind of, oh God, like, oh, better you than me.
Yeah.
But there's that limit though. Sometimes it's just too much.
And good commentary too. Like, I mean, granted, when you're at a live event, you don't have the benefit of Jim Ross or Excalibur or Michael Cole in your ear. But the ring itself sells. And one of the recent independent shows I went to in North Carolina, it was all male except there was one women's match. And people are still trying to talk about women's matches being the popcorn match, but I'm here to tell you the women's match outclassed everybody to the point where we're watching, like, because it was I can't remember their names, but the girl, the champion, she kind of had like a gypsy gimmick or like a belly dancer gimmick, and the challenger was kind of like if you took Abaddon and Rhea Ripley and made them into one person, but didn't have the recognition.
Different from each other.
Yes, very different, but the story was there, and you're rooting for, the baby face was the belly dancer, and she was coming around, she did all this stuff. And what was funny was they were putting on such a great show. They had all the gimmicks, like the emotion and everything. And I'm watching behind the curtain, you see the guys peeking around, they're like this, and I knew, like, after that, the guys were like, we got to step up our game. This is stealing the show. What do we going to do? All right, hey, remember what we planned? We're going to do this now because they're just killing it. And they stole the show. I mean, they were the best. To me, it was the best match. And I love how I've said this a few times, and some people have disagreed with me, but some people have agreed. Like, do you feel like women's wrestling is finally really starting to get the recognition it deserves? Do you feel like there's we still have a long way to go, or we kind of both?
I would say it's a little bit of both, because there's very good women's wrestling out there, but there's still women's wrestling that's like, sometimes let me phrase it this way. Sometimes to have a women's match on the show, they'll get two girls that are not ready, and just for the fact to have two girls on the show, or something else that I've been seeing often, just to say that they had a all women's main event. They're gonna grab two women, put them in the main event when there's wrestler a lot more experienced or known before them, and it puts pressure on them, and they don't feel ready. And if you put them in the main event, strongly believe that it's because they're going to be the match of the the show.
Yeah.
And not just to say, oh, we want women in the main event, because you're not helping your show, and you're not helping your women as well if they don't feel comfortable doing it. One thing that a lot of fans told me about women's wrestling, especially the ones that would go specifically to a women's wrestling show, like in Shimmer. Actually, many of them told me, like, I prefer women's wrestling because it's a lot more focused on emotions than actual moves. There's characters, there's gimmicks, there's something that you can either fall in love with or hate, and it's a lot about emotion. So that's why I prefer women's wrestling. So that's why I was laughing when you told your story. I was absolutely not surprised that the girls, there was an absolute baby face and an absolute heel. This is the first key to a good match. If you go out there and you're like, oh, I'm face, and you just do spots and there's no clear line of who you should boo and who you should cheer, unless it's something built.
Yeah, unless there's already a storyline.
Faces fight each other and you've kind of been you've been led to that story with a storyline or something. Heel and a face. You're doing a spot show, make sure there's a heel and a face. Sometimes I was like, I'll show up somewhere and it's like, well, usually I'm a face and I know you're a face, so I'm like, okay, I'll be the heel. Well, you're more of a face. No, there needs to be a heel and a face. And guess what? The match that has more screams, more boos, more everything from the crowd is the one that they know it's clear who to boo and who to cheer.
Yes.
So, yeah.
But a couple things, like I remember when Kurt Angle debuted in WWF or WWE, his first match wasn't getting much reaction until he grabbed the microphone and said, "You do not call an Olympic champion boring." And then it was like, boo!
Oh, yeah.
That's money. Like,
right from there, they knew. And, they started the Who suck with his, you suck with the song and everything. And he was so great at it because it was clear from that moment, you think I'm boring, you don't want to like me, then I'll give you something. Like, I'll give you a reason not to like me. And it was clear. And he's one of the best of all times.
One of my favorite matches, and I miss AEW Dark because it got to showcase for me so much independent talent, so much new talent. I mean, that's where I discovered like Matty Rinkowski and a lot of other wrestlers. One of my favorite matches was Athena versus Jody Threat, and I've got a Jody Threat sticker on my back. I don't know if you've got heat
Jody's
with Jody.
Great.
You have heat with Jody. I hope you don't have heat with Jody, but
oh my God, no, Jody, she's one. I think she's my favorite. So I love her. I love her as a person.
I'll put my LuFisto decal next to my Jody Threat decal on my car. But like what was interesting was the match was getting real brutal, and the crowd was starting to kind of rally behind Jody Threat. And up to this point, Athena had been a babyface, a clear babyface wrestler. She was feuding with Jay, and then she read the crowd immediately and started doing heelish things in the ring, and immediately was really playing up this more brutal character. And to me, I thought that was tremendous because, I thought that's exactly what you're talking about. Is you're placing the show above your own ego, and to kind of, I don't know, maybe not. Okay.
No.
All right.
No, I know what happened in that match, and it's not
okay
for me to say. But I'm glad it came out that way for wrestling fans, though, because that helps my business. But
here's my thing. My experienced, unprofessional, just eating Cheetos, watching TV, going, oh, this, because I'm a huge Jody Threat fan. But yeah, if you know more info, I defer to you. It came across that way. Maybe it wasn't supposed to go that way, but I was very it looked pretty brutal, and maybe that's
in the end, if it gave you some love for Jody, I think that's what matters, because she has been a constant professional in that situation with
Mm-hmm.
what happened. That's all what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
So that she got another fan and that she got more love and now she's with Impact Wrestling.
Yes.
Really, that's all positive. So in the end, I mean, it's a good thing. You know what?
Yeah.
'Cause right now she's in a place where she told me they treat her well. So you know what? Good, because Jody deserves it. She's hardworking, and most of all, like, yeah, she's a good human being.
All right, we're going to take a quick break from solving all of the world's problems to tell you about a good friend of mine and a service she's offering. Are you tired of feeling like your dream financial future is out of reach? Are you struggling with overwhelming debt, trying to pay off your home early, or simply wanting to give more? Well, my good friend Vanessa Rutter Jackson is here to help. An educator and military veteran, Vanessa is here to guide you through the confusion and make your dream financial future a reality. With her certified financial coaching services, she'll help you create a personalized plan that sets you up to win with money. As an educator and a mother of two, Vanessa understands the challenges of scraping by and stretching paychecks. She's been there and she knows how to navigate the financial landscape to help you thrive. Don't let financial stress hold you back any longer. Take the first step towards financial freedom today with Rutter Jackson Financial Coaching. Reach out to Vanessa today for a free 45-minute consultation at varutter34@gmail.com or go to tinyurl.com/RJ Money Coach. That's varutter34@gmail.com or tinyurl.com/RJ Money Coach. Remember, it's never too late to take control of your finances and achieve your dreams. Start your journey to financial freedom with Rutter Jackson Financial Coaching today. All right, now let's get back to solving the world's problems with the most charming host on the interwebs. Well, let's get to this. This is a great example. And it's not always sinister because I didn't come at that last comment with any malicious. This was what my
Oh,
perspective.
I know.
And I know you know that too. No, but I'm using this as example that how many experts there are in the business and social media that have not only never set foot in a ring, but like have no connect, like the armchair bookers, the armchair, wrestlers that comment and they know what's going on. Trust their sources, trustmebro.com, you know, or, they don't really understand. Like, and it's, was it Winston Churchill said, that a lie can make it halfway around the world before the truth gets its pants on. And now with the internet,
That's a great quote.
it makes it all the way around the world, and people make up their mind without even trying to hear the truth.
Yep.
How do you feel like social media has a net positive, or do you think that we need some more critical thinking, or is this getting out of
We need
control when
more
it comes to
research because a
more
lot of
research?
people would judge without knowing
Mm-hmm.
or with having just a little bit of information when sometimes you need a little bit more. um it's funny because when the whole problem with AEW happened with me, where all I did was answer a fan that had a sign that says book women better, and I just replied, you know what, if you want to book your women better, maybe the ones at the top should get out of the booking and get someone really in charge. Basically, that's, I didn't say it that way, but that was what
Yeah.
my comment meant. So, and after we're like, oh, name names, blah, blah, blah. And I got like super, so I was like, I told the whole story of what happened when I got there. And I knew there would be repercussions, but what really triggered everybody going nuts online was when MJF went online and said I was a nobody and I didn't do anything for wrestling. And basically, I was a miserable, delusional human being. And I've met him twice, maybe at a show,
Yeah.
and he was always polite, very nice. But from that moment on, I had death threats. I was a nobody, and people were like constantly harassing me on all my social medias, like Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, like everywhere. From that simple comment. because he has the reach online to, you know, to get these reactions, or these people react to whatever. And the funny thing that happened is, as much as I got like negative out of it, there's a lot of people starting looking around my name. It's like, okay, so you fought the law for women's right in professional wrestling. Oh,
Yeah.
you're the first one who did actually, you're one of the first ones who actually fought for women's right to wrestle the guys, and you were the first woman to hold CCW gold, the first woman to be a king of the death matches, the first woman to be in a cage of death, the first woman. So it kept adding.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, you're in the Hall of Fame of this company, this. I'm like, well, so you're not a nobody like he says. It's just that people don't go around and look for information, because unfortunately there's a lot of things that happen in wrestling that if it's not on TV on a major network, people don't know about it.
Yeah.
But it happened. So it doesn't mean you're nobody because you did not do it on a program. It's like, oh, you've never been signed, so you're a piece of shit. Yeah, but I've never been signed because I was the girl doing hardcore, and it was bad for TV. I was too violent, bad for TV. Doing wrestling guys, bad for TV. A little too thick. No, we want models, bad for TV. So for all these, like, my timing has been terrible for wrestling. I was doing all that when people seen as wrong. Now it's things that are applauded by the public. But back then it's like, yeah, I was pushing very hard, too hard, in a generation that was not ready for it, but somebody had to make, the first steps.
Yeah.
And I mean, with me came Mickey Knuckles, when people like Mercedes Martinez, with,
Yes.
with the whole Shimmer thing now, where women had their own promotions. Then Shine happened, and Beyond Wrestling did a lot for intergender wrestling, where people like, I'm thinking Kimberly, now Masha, all wrestling guys and girls equally. But yeah, it's just a little bit, I did all that way before it was acceptable, I would say.
Hey, everybody, give LuFisto her flowers, for crying out loud. I mean, you did. And
she had more money for all the things.
Right? Exactly. If I could get money. But that's the thing. It's like, it's one of those things where it's nice, but you don't have to look very hard to really find out about you. Like, I mean, for someone to say that you're a nobody is such an ignorant statement. If you have any, I mean, even just a general casual Google search on LuFisto, you're like
my website's pretty complete.
All this stuff comes up, and not to use hyperbole, but do you feel like what you endured and what you've gone through paved a way for a lot of these other female talents today?
That was the plan.
Yeah.
With everything I was going through, I was like, it was always about, you know what? I don't want this to happen to anybody else. This is, I don't want no other girls to get through this or live this. So that's why I've always been upfront and talk loud when I saw something wrong. It's like, it's been bad for me because, oh, she has a big mouth, but somebody has to say it sometimes. And if you want things to get fixed, you got to address it.
Yeah.
If you don't, nothing's going to change. So yeah, it comes with its load of problems.
It does. And there is the notion of the prisoner's dilemma. Like I use this when I talk about problems in the education system. There's most teacher. I mean, we have a teacher shortage in the United States.
Same in Canada. They're on strike right now because it's bad.
And it's and I have friends in the UK, same thing. It's like there's such a teacher shortage, and every educator I talk to, it's the same, like, as I feel. We're so miserable. There's so much they're putting on our plate. There's so little control, all of the issues. But when it comes to speaking up, there's this fear of being the one that gets the target. Like when the tomatoes are thrown, or the bullets are thrown, but when the tomatoes are thrown, the fear of being the one to get hit. And for example, like if every teacher decided to just not come into school tomorrow, they would have to shut down the education system for the day.
Yeah.
But but that would never happen because you're always going to get that one teacher like, well, I want to be there for the kids, and that's what gets abused in the education system is they abuse our desire to help children and our desire to be there for them because a lot of these kids, school is the best thing in their
Yeah.
lives. They get home to a broken home, or they get their
It's
hot
their
meals
safe
at
place.
school.
Yeah.
Yeah, safe place. So, and that's a tough thing. But in general, like with wrestling, with education, with a lot of places, like Amazon, the Amazon strikes and stuff like that. It takes, pardon the language, it takes a French Canadian asshole with a big mouth to to speak up and to be loud and be like, no, F you, you're gonna hear me about this. This is not right. And I just wish more people compelled, like felt that like lack of cero miedo, that lack of fear for doing that.
If there's one thing that I noticed with the whole AEW debacle, and that really broke my heart, is that I feel today people have no integrity. They will
Yeah.
throw their values in the garbage just to make sure they have what they want and not what's right for the general population.
Ugh.
And like so many people send me messages like privately of things like this same thing happened to me, and um but basically no one, or they would tell me in person, but no one went online to
Publicly.
defend me. Nobody. And I get that for people, people who work there, it's their job. Sometimes it's the only way they make money.
Hmm.
So I'm not mad or anything. If one thing, I really understand. But when I'm right, and I know when some of these people are probably going to get out of there, they'll probably say, hey, LuFisto was right. And a lot of fans right now, there's not a day that goes by with everything that happened with CM Punk and Jack Perry and all the other things that are happening right now. There's not a day that goes by where I don't see a message like, hey, LuFisto was right. She called this like what 2-3 months ago now,
Yep.
and it's happening again, and everybody was hating on her, and she told the truth.
Well,
And
yeah.
anyway, why would I go out there and tell lies to get all that backlash? I'm like, no, like I would be into sadomasochism. Like if I was, I was like, like you expect a backlash, but you don't expect this much.
Yeah, I really felt like, again, people know me. People know I love AEW. I love what it's done for wrestling. I love what and I love so many talents. People call me the Mark of Marks because there's so much talent I love, and I think you can separate loving a talent, but also acknowledging when there are severe problems with something you love, and this is something that I think a lot of people have a tough thing with. It leads to that tribalism. It leads to that thing online where, whether it's COVID or whether it's what's like the Gaza, Palestine, Israel, or if it's Ukraine, and whatever the issue is, a lot of times people, I think, get so emotionally invested that when there's data, they can't have a nuanced take. They
Yeah,
can't
you
say,
need to separate, like at first, like I had high hopes for AEW because I would see some of my indie friends going, being finally on TV, and I'm like, I hope they're gonna, take them under their wings and show them the TV way, and they'll have a great job, and they're making their own talents. Finally, it's new people that, the general wrestling fan haven't seen yet. It was new, it was fresh. And then by seeing it with my own eyes, by hearing it by other people who work there or worked there, there's no structure. It's
yeah,
a complete mess. It's always the same people at the top. They bringing more stars now only to put everybody else that's new and they could create and put up front and build as their own stars. They throw them to whatever's left of Ring of Honor, which it breaks my heart. I was part of Ring of Honor when it got sold, and it's like I see it now and I'm like, oh my God. What have they done? The Ring of Honor. It's
What
like,
have you done to my boy?
what have you done to my? It's like,
What
yeah.
have you done to my boy?
But yeah, it's, you have to make different. There's so much talent at AEW, but half of it you don't even see. And first thing you'll know is like they don't renew the contract; they just let it go. And
Yeah, the lack of
you could have done
communication.
so much with this person. I was like, oh my god, like where's Serena Deeb? I'm like,
Oh my
whatever,
goodness. Oh.
whatever.
I'm an armchair booker. I sit there. I even do like a armchair booking through the Dynamite Download, where it's, and the pretense is, of course, I'm not in the industry. I am not. I have no I just, like, this is from a fan's perspective what I would do. But like you said, it's Serena Deeb. Why she would, not only would she be awesome, she would be a great female member of the BCC. Like she would, there's so much potential with so many of these people.
And when I'm thinking about two names that comes to mind all the time for me are Wardlow and Will Hobbs. How, like, they were like this, and then they dropped the ball. Then they try again. They just dropped the ball. It's like, my God, you had magic with Wardlow with his power bombs and everything. They should have like just shut him to the top. Same thing for Willie Hobbs, like. And then he was doing this thing with QT, and then something else. No, the man's a beast. Give him something else. I'm like, he's money. What are you doing? It's
his match with Miro, like that's where the whole meat slapping meat thing that came from the fans.
Yeah,
like we're all like, you put Miro versus Hobbs, and
can you believe these two guys against a guy like Samoa Joe? I'm like, add Wardlow in there, or Lance Archer, big guys like big meaty man who could freaking hit hard and slap. And like I said, it's not a talent problem. It's a structural problem.
Yeah.
It's a problem that the bosses do not have the grapefruits, if we want to say a term that's good for if your students are.
Your grapefruits. Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, even if I want to play armchair booker, there's so
right.
Oh,
like, you know what? If I had the money, you and I would create our own promotion, and it would be so awesome. And again, both of us not being a major part of it, but you have a unique perspective. It seems to me, specifically with AEW, but this happens to see a lot of companies, that there's a communication problem, and like that. I feel like the situation with CM Punk and the Elite would not have happened the way it did if the folks in charge were a little more, I don't want to say stern.
You grab them both. Everybody, you don't want to talk to each other, but hey, I'm the boss. I'm paying your check. Here's a room. You go sit down in there. I lock the door, and as long as it's not fixed, we're not doing anything, and you're not getting paid. Fix it.
Yes.
But and how can you let go the person who's making you the most money?
And it doesn't make sense. And what doesn't make sense is how, a lot of people talk about how disappointed they were in CM Punk when he had the infamous muffin gate, when he was eating the muffins and making all these comments. But to me, it should never have gotten to that point, because if I was as a manager, a leader, that's telling me, whoa, there is a miscommunication that I need to fix right now.
Until they got to that point.
It should never have gotten to that point.
How long it had been. Like, there's issues that should have been addressed before.
The Jack Perry thing, too.
Didn't say anything. Just like, I can't take this anymore. Nobody listens. F it. And the Jack Perry story, to me, is mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm.
He goes on TV, it's like, hey, cry me a river, bitch. I'm like, seriously? On the biggest show, you do that? He doesn't do this. I don't necessarily think what happened after happens.
No, but he felt comfortable
Yeah,
And
because
it's
he
kind
knew
of like,
there was not gonna be any repercussion for him. Oh, he's out for a few months now. Whatever. He
well,
wanted out anyway.
this is a problem in the education system too when it comes to behavior management in the classroom. What's happening now is that students aren't afraid to go to the office anymore. In fact, in some cases, they're excited. A kid will, if a teacher is doing their best to control the classroom, and they end up finally this kid's just acting up, says "Cry me a river, bitch" to the teacher or something. You send him to the office. He goes, and it's like the counselor goes, "Oh, are we having a rainy day? Let's go sit in the timeout room." And the timeout room has got all these fun toys.
Yeah.
It's got a bouncy ball. It's got all these things. And
There's
then they
no
walk out.
consequences anymore.
No,
Yeah.
actually, and they walk away with a candy. They want like, "Oh, you were behaved yourself in my eyes, so here's
Yeah,
your
because you
Jolly
don't want
Rancher."
him to go cry to daddy who's gonna call like whatever. It's
Yep,
terrible.
exactly. And so, and like I remember in an interview, and again, I promise we'll get out. Well, there's so many parallels to wrestling and other things, but we'll get. Joey Janela made a comment, and also like when Marco Stunt was no longer with the company. I don't even say let go, but like how there really wasn't communication. It was just kind of like it's kind of like that scene in Office Space where we just fixed the glitch. No confrontation. We didn't give them the respect of saying, "Hey, we're not going to renew your contract." It was just we didn't talk to you and let your contract run out. Most notably now,
with other people too.
yeah, and Allie's no longer with the company. The
I
bunny.
just saw that. Yeah,
and that drives me nuts too because now there'll never be another bunny action figure for my collection, but except for that one rare one. But
Blade is a team they could have done something with. Like Blade is absolutely talented.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great technical wrestler. He could have been a great teacher. I'm sure they're going to find something else somewhere else, definitely. But there's so much talent they don't do. There's too much talent. Just work with the ones you have and stop signing whoever gets out of WWE. Build your own product. Be the alternative.
Yes.
Right now it's like, WCW in the last days of, what it looked like. And just to give you an idea, the Bell Center in Montreal can hold 21,000 people. And right now, they have sold 2,500 tickets for a show that's in 3 weeks.
Oof. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's people are saying, I love AEW.
It makes me sad for the people who go out there and perform. They should have a great crowd, but if there's no captain in the boat, it's everybody tries to do whatever they want, and that's what happens.
And it's something that can be delegated too. If it's a matter of this person's so overworked because he's also got a football team he's managing, or he's got all these other things, you delegate to the right people. You find
with the
those
names people that they have. It's crazy. Like, okay, like Jerry Lynn and Christopher Daniels.
Yes.
And, they had Arn Anderson. They didn't do anything. And he even said himself that nobody would listen to what he had to say. How can you not listen to Arn Anderson? They have Mark Henry. They have the Big Show. They do have people who live the big life and that actually could bring that knowledge. Not necessarily by being in the ring, but by running things backstage and making sure matches are not the same and being agents and giving classes or whatever.
Tell Mark Henry that this doesn't work for you, brother. I don't think try to tell Mark try to be Jungle Boy size and say this doesn't work for me, brother, and to Mark Henry. You really want to.
These are things that don't even happen in some of the independence promotions I've worked with.
Yeah,
but it happens on that level, which is mind-boggling.
I hope I'm gonna be like my grandmother because she had these neighbors that were just they never mowed their lawn and they had junk in the front lawn, and she would pray that they won the lottery so they could move away. That was how she spun it in a positive way. She didn't
In
do
a
anything,
positive way, and
you know,
go
she
get
was such a
someone to get
sweetheart,
their lawn, their
right?
lawn.
It was such a, like, she's such a sweetheart. She couldn't wish anything ill. So she prayed that they win the lottery so they could move away from her neighborhood. And so it's that same thing. Like I hope they find, I hope there's a wake up, and I hope things
Yeah,
kind of,
we need a wrestling
yes.
alternative. We need more than one promotion. So yeah, like, but you gotta get rid of the bad apples and, you know, dust yourself off and,
Yeah.
you know, go and rebuild and do it.
I want to get into some more mental health topics, but I'm going to ask you this question of would you rather? Would you rather take a chop from Emi Sakura or a kick from Janai Kai?
I already got a kick from Janai Kai, so I'll take the chop.
Yes,
I got several from Janai Kai.
the kick demon, but like in a pure like a pure kick from Janai Kai versus a chop from Emi Sakura. To me, I don't know. I think both would stop my heart.
She's a great kicker. I'll say that. I love Janai Kai. I'm really happy for her and being the MLW Women's Champion. And yeah, that's great. And all the Japan stuff she's doing too.
There's so much, like, there's so much great talent on the indies still.
There is.
Like, you know, I just, when I hear, like, I get excited when someone from Mission Pro gets signed or someone from this, you know, gets signed, and then like I'll discover, like, there's Black Swan. She's this wrestler. I don't know if you've seen her, but she does this.
I've heard the name, but I haven't seen.
She kind of, have you seen the movie with Natalie Portman, Black
Swan?
Of
course, yeah.
She's kind of taking that. She's kind of a ballet. She's like a contortionist.
She has to check though. There's a guy who does the gimmick up in the
oh. All right. Well, hey. All right. There's the feud for the gimmick. Swan versus Swan.
Feud for the gimmick. Yeah.
Yeah. We got to get that going. You mentioned depression, and you know, the kind that stays with you. How do you manage that, and how have you grown with that throughout your life, and how has that been something that, you know, as therapy helped, do prescriptions helped, is there something that you manage on your own, and is it more about evolving from the time where it was, are you depressed, go walk it off, or I'll give you something to cry about, to now where we're much more aware of mental health?
I would say back then, like, I tried therapy. I did have medication here and there, but I would always stop, and then I would be fine for a while, and then it would come back, and then it was always like a kind of a roller coaster. And it's just like during what really hit me is I started writing my book, and I had to stop because it's like all the things I really put behind and didn't think about it, everything was coming back. And it's like, it was way too much. And that's why I just stopped writing, and I went and I just seek for help. I don't have like a doctor, but I went to the emergency. I'm like, please help me, because I don't feel good. And I started therapy with just a counselor, because there was no doctor available for a while, because it's the same problem as the teachers here. Doctors are hard to find.
Yeah.
But I ended up with one finally, and he found the perfect medication for me. So I see him often now, and I'm more like when I was seeing the counselor, she gave me like tricks of, you know, when your brain thinks that, remind yourself of, and now I'm more aware of what my brain does, I would say, and how it reacts, and how I can like stop it. So really, like, yeah, therapy and practicing, and the right medication, and the fact that he also diagnosed my ADHD. It's like everything all together. So I have medication for that as well. And now I'm like really controlled. I sleep good for the first time ever in my life. So, and
that's so important.
Yeah, because I'm one of those who kept waking up and thinking, and you can't go back to sleep. So it's been like that all my life. But now I am actually going to bed, and I wake up when one of my cats is hungry,
Yeah,
or
right.
when my watch vibrates to tell me it's like, hey, it's time to get up.
The furry alarm clocks are great. Yeah, we
I
got those
know.
here.
Oh, there's Axel, my Persian. She scratched. She's like, I'm hungry. I'm hungry.
Right.
Time for food. Get your ass
Who
up.
who's really running things around there, right? I mean, who's
They
I love
are.
there's a great cartoon that's a dog and a cat go to heaven, and the god says to the dog, why should I let you into heaven? The dog goes, well, I tried to be a good boy and I wanted to be the goodest of boys and I hope I was a good boy, but please let me, please, please, please. And then he turns to the cat and the cat goes, you're in my seat. Yeah, that sums up our cats here. They both run us. We're their servants. And like even today, and I tried CBD because I have some late night classes that I teach virtually. I teach students in China, Canada, and New Jersey. But I teach different time zones. So sometimes I'm
Oh,
I'm teaching at like 8 o'clock at night, and so I tried CBD so I could get to sleep because I'm after teaching I'm like, all right,
yeah,
what
yeah,
next? What
you're all
next?
hyped up.
I'm all pumped up. So I tried CBD, and the first time I tried it, it didn't quite work. So I tried two, and I woke up at 1 in the afternoon the next day. And it was one of those, and I had drool, that kind of sleep where you get the drool,
I tried the oil version,
yeah,
and when the first thing happened with my book and everything, I was very anxious, and it really helped with anxiety and
yeah.
being more focused. But now that I have medication, I'm just not using it. But it's really something that helped. Like I was surprised. Yeah.
There is something to that, and again, with all the crazy stuff going on with COVID or whatever, and all this and that, I do think I am still a champion for the medication for as a whole. If you know what you're taking, if you understand your symptoms, and that you find a good doctor. I think that's important too. It really, really can help, and I'm a big proponent on that. I had a student that when I was teaching fourth grade, she had autism, but her mom hadn't really had that talk with her about it, so she didn't understand her symptoms, and she would get just so depressed. She'd come home crying because she didn't have any friends, and then one day her mom sat her down, had that conversation with her, and it was like a light clicked on.
Yeah.
She went, "Oh, that's why all these things don't go the way I think," and then after that conversation, I mean, she was like a different person. She felt more confident. It was almost like she finally, like the missing
Yeah,
puzzle goes in.
being aware of it, I think, is
Mhm.
the first step. Accepting it is the second, and the third one is to simply, if you need medication, just take it. Don't be ashamed of it. It's just that the chemistry in your brain needs it.
Yeah.
You're not like weirder or whatever. It's just the way you're built. It's, as Lady Gaga says, you were born this way.
Born
And,
yes.
so don't be ashamed. Just, it's
Mhm.
gonna help you. It's gonna be good for you. And yeah, definitely, like meeting that doctor for me was, yeah, it was an eye opener, and I feel much better in general about everything.
It's finding a good doctor is like finding a good mechanic that you
Yeah.
trust. It's like it's hard to find, but once you do, latch on. They're looking under your hood, and they like, hey, here's what's going on with you. Have you found in the industry that, and maybe outside the industry in other professions, have you found sometimes people self-medicate or refuse to go to the doctor, or is that
Well,
something?
refusing to go to the doctor should be like it should be on every wrestler's card. Like, I refuse to go to the doctor because, yeah, we don't, but it's mostly for injuries. But a lot of
Yeah.
us, I think, it goes for mental health too. It's like, oh, I'll be fine. Oh, I'll work through it. Oh,
Mhm.
whatever. But now that it's more talked about, I feel people do it a little less than what it used to be. And again, it's a good thing. But
Yeah.
as self medication, I don't think I know anyone At least no one comes to mind, but I've seen plenty of people. It's like, oh, I'll be fine. It's like, no, get your
Yeah.
help, get help. You know?
Yeah. Are you hurt or are you injured? If you're hurt, get back out there. If you're injured, yeah, you're not going to get a gig. You're
Yeah,
not going
no,
to get
yeah,
paid. Yeah. I one of a very controversial topic. Aside from the stuff we've already talked about, but a very controversial topic, and I still don't know where I sit with it. Is when I was younger, I was a huge Chris Benoit fan. I love the Crippler. I love the Rabid
same.
Wolverine. Him and Eddie Guerrero, when they came to WWF and from WCW, and he was, the Crippler crossface. I love like his entrance music. I love like he was coming, and he was one of those wrestlers to me that he didn't need to be good on the mic. He didn't need a promo because he just looked like that badass.
It was
Like
so intense. Yeah.
yeah, all he had to do was just stand there and go, like this. And I mean that I look like more like Mark Briscoe there. But anyways, I think that like his presentation was he's going to come out and kick your ass. He's going to put you in the crossface. But then as he was constantly all the time doing the headbutt, we know what happened with the concussions and whatnot, and it really mushed his brain. And of course, losing Eddie, who was such a close friend of his. And he did those horrible things. And one of the things that bothers me is when you bring Chris Benoit's name up, it's like immediately everybody just says you can't talk about him because of the horrible things he did to his wife and son and himself. And his career is unspeakable. Strike it from the record. And there's so many people that say that. And to me, I want to separate who his career and what he was from the abomination he became because of concussions. Like they looked at his brain, they said it looked like oatmeal, and so
it looked like oatmeal. And like at first I didn't know how to react because he was my favorite wrestler when that happened. A lot of things that I do and the intensity that I use is inspired by Benoit. And at first it's like it's so heartbreaking because you're like, man, what did you do? What did you do? And it's like I couldn't watch or listen to this song for I don't know, years.
Yeah.
Then there was a documentary that happened in Canada where his father was talking, and he had that book in his hand where Chris was writing to Eddie every day in this book. And Christopher Nowinski was there, who studied Benoit's brain. And after that documentary, I felt different about him. And I'm like, you know what? Chris Benoit is a name we should talk about because he was someone who's was very disciplined, very focused, very perfectionist, a little bit too much. But the fact that his brain, when they studied it, his brain, they say, Christopher Nowinski said it looked like a 75-year-old man with heavy dementia. So he was not all there.
No.
Apparently, he was talking to Eddie and he was talking to himself, and he was obviously mentally sick, a lot. What he did is inexcusable, but was he very aware of what he did? I do have my doubts now, and that's by listening to someone who knows who's talking about, and Chris Nowinski, who's a specialist in anything that has to do with concussions and CTE. So that's why I believe that now, knowing what we know about CTE, the name Chris Benoit should, he should be talked about of what happened to him by having so many chair shots and hits to the head and not being treated and not stopping and keep going. It messed him up like on a physical, in a physical way so bad that mentally it completely destroyed who he was.
Yeah.
I can't say how he was before because I've met him, but very quickly for hi, hello, picture, whatever. But if I listen to the people who were close for him, I've also met his son, David. Very nice gentleman. And, I want to think about his living children more than I want to think about anybody else because they live with whatever their father have done more than any one of us. So, but the way I feel he sees his dad, like he says his dad was his hero.
Yeah.
And he still kind of talks to him about him this way, is because I strongly believe that he sees his dad as before, then whatever led to him snapping, his brain not being, or not being a brain anymore, whatever was left of this. So it's a really hard situation, because you don't wish that on anyone. I mean, I, as much as I love Chris Benoit, I love woman Nancy. She was beautiful. She was ahead of her time. Great manager. She's one of those women back in the day. She had like a good microphone. She could cut promos, and she was like a strong woman.
Yeah.
And, well, so that was great that was her name. So, you know, when I think about her, I feel terrible. And when I think about him, I also feel terrible in a different way. It's like, how the hell did you let yourself get to this point? But when you're so passionate, so focused, such a perfectionist that you do not allow, like when he missed the match, like I think it's Chavo Guerrero who mentioned it, like when he messed up in a match, he was doing squats back there.
Yeah.
Backstage, because kind of
Punishing.
punish himself. So you're like,
let it go, man.
yeah, let it go. But you know, you can see the kind of person he was, where he was so hard on himself.
Yeah.
Would a person that was so hard on himself accept to be left with such a legacy? I don't think so.
No.
So that's where I think, like, we can see that he was just not there anymore. It wasn't really him. It was just like
someone that obsessed, though, would refuse to go to admit that they need help. Like would to
that
admit,
too.
you know,
Yeah.
like he is somebody that would be like, oh, I'll work. I'm tough. I'm gonna work through this. It's nothing, and not realize it. And I don't know if you see it the same way, but I don't feel like the man that did those horrible things was the same Chris Benoit that I would cheer for. In fact, if anything, Chris Benoit is another victim of that monster that he became because of the oatmeal. I mean, it doesn't excuse it at all. I just, again, and if anything, it's a cautionary tale about concussion, CTE, and asking for help. Because if someone like Chris Benoit needs help, we all should be raising our hands when we need help, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the end, it's a sad story, and well, let's just hope people are now more aware of CTE and, you know, smarter on the choices they make when they're in the ring, or even in other sports, because it happens a lot in football. There's a lot of cases of CTE in football. So
you look at Junior Seau. There's been a few others where they, you know, either they kill themselves or they commit these crimes, and the same thing. You find out it's, you know, and this was something that not long ago that like there wasn't the CTE protocols that there are now.
No, because I remember, like, to go back to the beginning, you do not put your hand on the chair shot, otherwise you're a pussy. I was like, but today it's like, no, I'm not, nothing on my head, nothing.
You know, it's interesting too, because I feel like women's wrestling, you know, people really don't understand or appreciate it. Like, I grew up watching Glow, and Glow was cheesy, but it also had some of my favorite character. Like, that was, to me, like, the characters where I was fascinated. Dee Boer, who played Matilda the Hun, she was such a great heel. You know, she would bring a piece of raw meat and eat it in front of the kids. It's like, she loved that kind of stuff. There was Heavy Metal was a tag team, and it was Spike and Chainsaw, and I loved them. And it took me until the Glow Netflix show came out for me to realize that they were also the Housewives tag team. And totally different. Kelly, I thought they were totally different people, and then I realized they were the same. I was like, no way, that was the same people playing both parts. But to me, that's what I enjoyed about women's wrestling, was that, and of course the performance,
Mhm.
and then of course the Attitude Era came back with the, and if a woman wants to celebrate her body and do a bra and panties match, do something like that, go for it, knock yourself out. I don't want to poo poo that. But that's not my cup of tea so much. I mean, my enjoyment of women's wrestling is slobber knockers, like you and Holiday, putting each other through chairs, and even though it's probably hurting you guys, I'm sitting there going, oh yeah, let's go. And it's like Masha Slamovich and La Rosa Negra was what hooked me on Mission Pro. They had a match, and it was so cool because like Masha gets thrown into the stands, and the people are right there. There's not even a guardrail. The people are like right there. And Masha gets thrown into the stands. Larissa Negra does a tope. Then she grabs this guy's beer, drinks the beer, and then pours it on Masha, pours the rest on Masha. And everybody's into it. And it's like that kind of stuff. It's like you live for it.
Yeah, moments that you remember.
That's the stuff I love. And I hope more people get more excited. So getting back to it, let's go to more of a positive thing. You mentioned that in addition to being LuFisto, you also have another business or another job that you work, and how is that going? Do you mind talking a little bit about that? And is that
I work in the prison.
Well,
I'm in charge of files and everything that has to do with the agents and the prisoners as well. So I read that all day. I classify that. It's I do so many things, but I love it. I love it. It's an interesting environment, and it shows you a lot of depth when it comes to human beings. Like,
yes,
how do they get there, and what? It's very interesting.
Well, for one, I guess if things go sideways, they got LuFisto there to help regulate some things.
Well, there's agents too, so
yeah,
they're more prepared than I am, probably.
I bet that does give you a fascinating peek into some psychology of a lot of people. Do you see, like first of all, do you feel like the prison systems in our countries are they truly rehabilitative, or is it more?
I can see with my own eyes that for some people they are, because I see people who will come in and they will never come back. They will actually learn from their mistake. And I know, like, in our prison, there's therapy, they give classes, they really try hard to bring back these people, on the right path. But there's others that you just see their files and you're like, it's never going to change.
Yeah.
It's their way of life, and they don't, there's a few names like I've seen his name before. Oh, he's back. Oh, here's him again, like for the third time since I've been working here. So yeah, it's like I said, it's interesting on the psychology, psychological
perspective.
Perspective's the word I was looking for, where you see all different people, and that some people will actually get help and be,
improve their lives,
get better and change, and there's some that never will.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but you're a repeat offender. You're coming back, and I wonder how many also, because I see this in our country too, is that it's kind of like the same thing at school, where prison is, in sometimes, depending on their outside situation, sometimes prison is safe because it's regimented. It's a place to sleep. It's a place to get a hot meal. And versus where the alternative outside, some people may want to go to prison because that's where their friend. That's where their friends are. Maybe that's where there's some security there. It's been, especially with the job market and the way things are going in our respective economies. Maybe that's
so expensive, and oh Lord,
you can get a free cot and a free meal, or if you do that. That's fascinating too. And I was. One of my favorite shows was Oz, where they the one that took place in the prison. I don't know if you've seen that show. It's it's a series, and it takes place in a prison, and it talks about all the different gangs and all that. But it does kind of talk about. I mean, it's a show, so they're going to, of course, exaggerate a lot of things. And there does seem to be kind of this, was it the prison industrial complex where a lot of privatized prisons are using prisoners to make Nike shoes or something, like do these kind of Nike knockoffs or something. But I think it's interesting because, and I hope people can find some kind of restoration in our prisons, because they're supposed to be real rehabilitation centers. They're not supposed to be. I mean, granted, I guess maybe you can make the argument that it is a deterrent for others. Like, hey, if you commit this crime, this is where you're going. Do you feel like, where do you feel like we're heading in society though with like, are we going to start having our societies kind of like our school systems, where the consequences are becoming less and less? Or
I hope not.
Yeah,
I hope not, because it's. But then again, I mean, learning starts from such a young age, and if you're brought up this way, what happens when you're older? Let's just hope everything goes well.
let's be like my Nana. Everybody, I hope everybody wins the lottery so they can. It can be.
We can all get everything we want and don't bother anyone else.
I really appreciate you hanging with me. This has been so cool, and I want to have you back again. But I want to start to get some more positive, because we've really gone dark on a lot of things.
No, we're positive.
We're definitely positive. But what has been one of your most uplifting moments, whether in wrestling or in life? It's been one of your most positive, joyous moments, and maybe transformative in a positive way for you.
Well, I will say that meeting my boyfriend is definitely something that changed a lot in my life. I've known him for 20 some years before, but it's just never happened. And when I saw him again, I don't know, it just clicked. It's like now was the right time.
Yeah.
And we've been together for over 4 years now. He's just my biggest support. And he
hey, speaking of the run-in.
No, he's
hey, that's the golden wrestling rule.
Yeah,
that's the golden wrestling rule. You say his name and he's gonna come out, play his theme music, and oh my god. Well, that's cool. I think you're right too about timing. I met my wife at a time where both of us were, and of course we dated for several years before we got married, but we met each other at a time where both of us were mentally ready. We were, I was in my mid 30s, and she was still in her mid 30s. She's always been in her mid 30s. She's in her mid 30s today. She's not going to do a run-in. If she doesn't run in, she's going to bring a chair. But no, but she but like, if we met like even 10 years earlier or 5 years earlier, I don't think we would have gotten along. I don't think we would have hit it off.
Well, it was the same for us. Like, we because he wrestles too. We were in the same backstage, and we would talk, but not much, not like nothing more, nothing outside of wrestling. And I lived in the United States for 5 years. I came back to Canada. I see him on the show, and I'm like, what the hell happened to him? He looks so good now.
Yeah. Hello.
You older, he got the beard. It just clicked now. So yeah, he's my best friend, and we're hanging out, and we go to concerts together. We're two like metalheads, and definitely definitely he's a big help in everything. And it's my life's been great with him and my cats.
What's the key to a great relationship like that?
Communication.
Yes.
We always talk. We always If something bothers me, I'll tell him right away. And, it's, yeah, it prevents from getting to CM Punk eating weapons point,
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, that was mom and dad getting divorced right there on that scrum. Well, LuFisto, this has been tremendous. This has been more than I was excited for it to be. I really, really am. I've become more of a fan of you, not just as a wrestler, but as a human being. And I'd love to have you back on. In fact, I think there's so much more we could dive into. And
Sure.
if I ever hit the lottery, I'm calling you to help me start a wrestling promotion. But I got to hit the lottery first. But when I do, whether it's dollars or loonies, whatever it is, we'll start it up together, and we'll get a wrestling school with it and everything. Any final words of wisdom or thoughts for more than a fortune cookie for my listeners before we?
I think I've said it best when I said, it's not wrong if you it's not wrong if you don't feel right. It's just that you go seek for help. And, if you have to be on medication for the rest of your life, so be it.
Mhm.
Don't let anybody else tell you it's wrong. Do what's good for you. And, yeah, do think about yourselves, because we don't enough sometimes.
Amen to that. I love that. That's perfect. Do what's right for you. And with that, on behalf of LuFisto and her better half that poked his head in just a moment ago, and for all her cats, this has been Mind Runner, aka Aaron. Thank you for tuning in to Mental Health Mondays. We'll see you next time, and go take care of yourself. You deserve it.
Yes.
Always remember, you are not alone. Catch full episodes every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.